Okay, welcome back. We're on page 437 talking about conversion strategies. So the direct changeover, this is the worst of all the choices. Going cold turkey, so to speak. This is the most disruptive. This is one of the ones where, I don't know, I'm swapping out a time card system. So everyone accounts for their time. And so Friday we do it this way, and Monday we just do it a different way, and everybody's supposed to be happy. No, it doesn't work. Anyway, and of course, all hell breaks loose if the new system doesn't work at all. Like something went wrong, and man. So direct is dumb, dumb, dumb. Basically, you really need a fallback system if you're going to attempt to do that, but please don't. A phased implementation basically means don't install everything all at once. Do one tiny little piece, and then another tiny little piece, and then another tiny little piece, until finally you step through the system and all the things are done. Eventually, you'll get there. A pilot, I love this one. I had our organization had a bunch of engineers, and so if I wanted to try something, I would throw it to them first. Hey, check out this. And they would, because they had the right skill set to be able to go, oh, okay, this works. And then I would implement it with all the rest of the system. I had a pet organization. So maybe you have like 5 manufacturing plants. So you start it with one of the 5, let them work through the bugs and get some lessons learned. And after they've done it and kind of happy with it, then you do the other 4. So a pilot program. Excellent way of doing business. After the bugs are worked out, then you can move on to the others. And then parallel operation. This one's the most costly. Basically, that means I have the old system up and running and the new system is up and running simultaneously. And in the example of a time card system, this is a stupid example because it's not security related. But that means they would have to enter their time in the old system and in the new system both, which is annoying as heck, and most people would not do that. But it will allow you to compare the results. Maybe you have some sort of a certification system that says, at no time can you have this thing not protected. And you say, well, okay, then, I'm going to have this old system and the new system simultaneously, and only until I can prove that the new system works, then I'll take the old system away. So it could be that's the only system that would work. Okay, the bullseye model. So since I can't do everything at once, I need to have some way of starting this thing. So let me ask you, where do I start? Do I start with applications? Do I go in and say, okay, we're going to implement this new piece of software or new hardware or something? Is that the bullseye how it works? No. I start with the policies, and then the networks, and then the system, then the actual application of whatever the heck we're doing. Okay? By the way, does that sound like a good test question to you guys? Do you start from the center or do you start from the edge? Okay. And then outsourcing. So in-house or out-house. Cool term. I like it. Security has a very specialized skill set and very highly paid people, right? So only very large organizations grow their own. Okay, a lot of companies, it's like, this is a topic that costs a lot, takes specialized skill, maybe some certification and some training. And quite frankly, the topics, change very rapidly, and they have to be up to speed on all these upcoming changes. So maybe we are just contract this part out. So that's kind of sort of makes sense. Now, you do have to trust your contractor, right? Because you're giving them the keys to the kingdom, so to speak, right? But here's a classic example. I would never, ever, ever try to do, penetration testing, pen test, with my own people. No way. First of all, they know too much, and it wouldn't be a legitimate test. But, definitely would hire somebody to do that, okay? And auditing? No, I'm not, again, I don't want to audit my own stuff, because it's just like when I'm proofreading my document. If I wrote the document, I'm always going to read it the correct way. And it's only someone else reading it's going to say, that doesn't make any sense, right? So outside eyes. All right. So technical governance and change control, page 440. So how frequently are systems changing for example, at the university? Did we just, when Windows 11 came out, did we say, hooray, let's convert over all the PCs tonight? Is that how we did it? No. Are there still Windows 10 machines there at the university? Yes. We And then the versions of Windows 10 or 11 that we get are what's called, it's a long-term servicing channel, which means they do not get changes. They only get security updates and things, but they don't get any feature changes. Like, hey, do you see the new start menu in Windows 11? No, we don't get that with the LTSC versions because it minimizes the number of changes. Okay, that's kind of the point here. And so why do we do that? It's because before we implement any changes, I need to have the staff behind it who says, I have seen this before. I know what you're talking about. Because if it's brand new to them, when you call up and say, I don't understand how to change this thing in the new start menu for Windows 11, the guy's going to say, what new start menu? What are you talking about? Right? That can't happen. Okay. Another way of doing this is have a production environment and then a development environment, right? Two separate ways. Programmers are over here doing some stuff, and only after they've got everything work and somebody's come in and certified it and legal has seen it and the security has seen it, then it moves over to production. Okay, you don't work on the one that's actually being used. You work on a separate copy over here. Excellent way to do business. And it doesn't really cost that much to have a separate development environment. Like, for example, here's another example. In most worlds, at home, for example, if you had two machines at home and Microsoft patch came out, typically what would happen is you download the patch and install it. And then you fire up your other machine. It would say, hey, I need that patch. And it would download it from the internet and install it. In a corporate world, I can't have 400 or 500 machines hitting the internet all simultaneously Monday morning or Patch Tuesday, and downloading this thing. Wouldn't it make more sense to have one copy come down and then all the machines go to that one? Okay. So it solves a lot of problems. Plus, it provides an opportunity for me to do testing. So here's how I would do it. We'd get a patch coming in on Patch Tuesday. I would not release it immediately. I would wait a while. I'd go to the internet, see if anyone's having problems. Nope, I haven't heard a peep. So maybe the day after that, I would release. Or the example I gave, a patch comes in and I go to the engineering group and say, I'm going to install this patch on your machine. Let me know if anything funky happens. They go, okay. And so they kind of test it for me, and so they're happy, and then I release it to the rest. Okay. So change control. So don't skip on this. If you're going to do a change control kind of a thing, don't make it like other duties it has assigned. It has to be somebody actually responsible for doing this. Now, change control board is like an organization, and here's the goals. Improving communication about changes, rather than what the heck's going on now, that kind of stuff. Enhancing coordination. If I'm going to make a change, is that going to affect you? A classic example is I'm getting ready to install this thing, and the manufacturing says, wait, we're in the middle of retooling, so that part's going to be turned off. Can you schedule us to the end of the week? And I go, oh, okay, cool, right? It kind of makes sense. Unintended consequences, there's always going to be something in there, an oops in there somewhere. And then the quality of service, things, can things periodically break? Those kinds of things. So the purpose for the change control board is to make sure every change is successful. But there's another reason. So I go before change control board and say, we're going to implement this new change in a security policy associated with this database. And everyone takes a peek at it, and everyone looks at it, and then the board, maybe it's like 5 people on the board, they say, yes, it's approved. And then I implement the change, and all hell breaks loose. And somebody comes to me and says, well, why the heck did you do that? You messed me up. I say, it wasn't me. It was the change control board that said it was okay to do. See how it works? It allows me to spread the blame. So over and above the textbook definition, a very important function that's not in the textbook is spreading the risk or spreading the blame. Okay? When they say they approved it, that means I have 5 people who looked at it and didn't see a problem. It wasn't just me. Okay? Good. Okay, Center for Internet Security, the Multi-State Information Sharing and Analysis Center. So basically, they talk about, basic controls, inventory and vulnerability and admin privileges and configurations and logs, those kind of things. And then the foundational stuff, the web and email systems and malware and firewall and data recovery. And then the organizational stuff. How aware are you? Do you have an incident response team? Do you do pen testing? Those kinds of things. So you basically can get a grade on your organization by using these tools and say, okay, you've got a B+ in security. Okay. So on page 441, they talk about the non-technical part. Basically, we're talking humans now. The human side of things. And humans do not like change. Okay? So the culture of change management, if you've ever been a supervisor and you take all these courses on how to be a supervisor, one of the things they talk about is, who moved my cheese? A cheesy book. But it talks about the culture of change management. And they talk about, unfreezing the organization. It's frozen in state. It's always done it this way. And so you're going to have to overcome this initial inertia to unfreeze things, which is really, really tough because a lot of people are going to say, I don't want to do it that way. I've always done it this way. Then you're going to have to move them to the new system. And then you're going to end up refreezing because that's going to become the norm. So let's talk about organizational change. It could be, one of your things is reducing change resistance. A lot of people are going to say, oh, come on, I've always done it that way. So communication is the key to this thing. Ask for their input, their feedback, so they're part of the solution. Here's another crazy example. I was working on this project that was going to end up possibly firing a bunch of employees. Okay, it's possible. And so everyone was very nervous about this project on whether or not we were going to hire a bunch of people in or, get rid of all of our staff and replace them with contractors. And so the way to solve the problem of making sure everyone was involved is we asked one of the union representatives to be on the team. So he could go back and say, there's no hanky-panky going on. These guys are doing a legitimate job and I'm agreeing with it and I think we're okay. That kind of stuff. So if you ask the opposition, so to speak, to join the team, that is an excellent way of reducing resistance. Okay. So developing a culture that supports change, not necessarily with the project that you're working on right now. So if change is part of the culture, right, then there's no need to fight it, right? But so you need a resilient structure, some sort of an organization that's just used to these kind of change. Very strong management support to be able to pull this off, like with a champion, like we talked about before. Okay. So that is the end of this chapter, and I'll see you guys again in the next chapter.